Good evening. And good evening also to the viewers. So thank you for coming. It's not so obvious that we come to a satsang, especially not in such a great weather. Maybe in the winter, in the deep winter when there's not much going on outside, but it's beautiful that we see a point in coming to such an intimate meeting with ourselves, because this is what it is all about. It is meeting ourselves at such subtle levels that our daily life, of course, for the most part doesn't allow. We're too busy, or we're too scattered, or we're too occupied playing a certain social role. And then the really big questions of life only sneak beneath our missions, our tasks, our activities. So here we are, and today we are going to talk about a certain state which we usually consider a negative, a bad state. And because, of course, we don't know exactly what to do with it, we usually escape it. But if we know what to do, then we could enter through a gate. In general, there are two ways to treat emotions and negative states. One is to try as much as possible to feel good, to move away from all these states, from all these emotions, to think good thoughts, because we must be happy. It's almost like a spiritual commandment. Thou shalt be happy. And we're trying as much as we can, but there is something annoying about being a human that almost calls us to experience all kinds of emotions, all kinds of feelings, all possible states in one lifetime. So the second approach says, if we already have these negative states, negative emotions, perhaps they have a good reason. Perhaps they can serve a certain purpose. Perhaps they're not really negative. And that's a more, what we can call a tantric approach. It doesn't avoid, it actually moves into states. And now you can already guess that if I'm presenting the two approaches, I'm probably going to promote the second one. So today I'm going to talk about a certain state that we call depression. First of all, you don't have to be depressed to learn from this talk. So, we don't have to say, no, this is not for me, at least not today. Today I'm feeling okay, I'm not depressed. And you also don't have to say, okay, I will keep this talk for when I am depressed one day. It's more like understanding something that can transform us all. If we take a look into depression, so it doesn't matter in what state we are right now. So before we are going to enter depression, I hope you're ready for that. Let us meditate shortly to prepare our being to be able to listen more deeply. So for that, let us close our eyes. Take a deep breath. And then breathe slowly and deeply, letting our body relax. More and more with every breath we take. So as we relax more and more, we will get in touch with the area of our head which, when it is so full of thoughts, sometimes feels like a closed box. We can also feel it physically. With the frontiers of our skull and the head in general, as if there are limits. And as we breathe into this area, let us check if there are really frontiers, or that it's only thoughts that give a sense of limitation to our mind. Let's feel the area around the head, the space that surrounds the head from the front, the sides, the back, and of course above it. And check if, aside from some degree of density, there is really a barrier that separates our mind from this space. If you remove any limiting thoughts, does your mind really have an end? Especially check in the area above the head. The top of the head. Does your mind really stop at the skull level? Or does it go on and on? Feel how you're letting the mind expand. You're not pushing it, but just allowing it to open up. In every direction. As if your head is stretching to infinity. And at the same time, as if you don't have a head at all. What is the state of your mind right now? Can you really find a point where your head ends? And space begins? With this sense of expansion, let us just take one more deep breath and slowly and gently come out of the meditation, trying to retain this sense of spaciousness. So it's good to be expanded now that we're starting our talk. So, why am I going to talk about depression? Why depress ourselves? There seems to be very few things that are more contradictory to what we can call enlightenment, at least apparently. How can the two possibly connect? Since enlightenment, so we are promised, is an everlasting joy and happiness, and of course, I'm not going to talk now about clinical depression. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm going to talk about a certain borderline state that we all, I think, if we are human, we all experience them here and there. Perhaps we fear them. Perhaps we reject them. Perhaps we have them, some of us have them more than others. Ironically, people who are more sensitive have them more and reach more these borderline states. But whatever it is something that to a certain degree we can all relate to. It's a sort of a feeling of being tired of life. Like life we see that no point in life, in continuing. There is like some feeling like we don't want to share or participate anymore in this life. Sometimes this is the result of some trauma or disappointment, a breakup, romantic breakup, a death. Sometimes it's a loss of career. And sometimes it happens also when everything is great. It happens also to people who have everything great, more than one could possibly imagine, and still depression creeps in. It's this feeling of loss of appetite for life. Suddenly you look at this whole carnival of life, this whole march forward that everyone participates in with so much noise and excitement, and you feel like you don't want anything to do with that anymore. You may not consider suicidal thoughts, like I want to kill myself, and that's good, but it's a sort of a feeling that the whole of life seems a bit absurd, pointless. And the whole of our journey, everything that we have built or everything that we have believed in, and so on and so on. And Why do I have this watch?
She was with the mom before.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's nice, but yeah. And again, often we feel that we need to overcome this quickly as possible, or we drown in it, and then after some time we kick ourselves out of it, or somebody does. But the question is, have we ever really taken a deep look into these moments? Because actually these moments are precious than gold. They are not a problem. They are not a crisis. They are an open window. Of course, again, the whole thing is what you make of them. So, to start this exploration, I'm going to give a very weird example. It's the example of one of the obviously most depressed people who have ever walked on this earth. And this is Prince Rama. This is we are now going back to the old yogic scriptures. There is one scripture that is called Yoga Vasishta. This is the Yoga Vasishta, and that's my favorite, my all-time favorite enlightenment book. And Yoga Vasishta, which is all about a book about enlightenment, about how to break through the limitations of the mind and realize our divinity and so on, starts with a complete depression. Prince Rama is who would later on become a king and a great king and a great enlightened being. He's still very young at the beginning of this book. He's like in his, probably I think in his 20s, and he goes to a pilgrimage. And he returns from this pilgrimage in a very strange state. His father becomes extremely worried. He seems like he doesn't feel like doing anything. It appears unhappy, indifferent. And the king is so worried that at those times kings had really interesting advisors. He invited his personal advisor, who was called Vasishta, a really great enlightened being, and asked him to discuss this state of depression with Rama. So they didn't do it just like a private session. Vasishta and the king summoned all the advisors and the wise ones of the kingdom, of the court, and called Rama. And the first thing they asked Vasishta, Vasishta asked Rama was, "What's going on? Why do you look like that?" Now though I'm deeply tempted, I'm not going to read the whole 12 pages of the answer, because these 12 pages are like one of the most beautiful speeches that anyone could ever write or speak. But I'm going to just read to you the first two paragraphs in which Rama begins his answer. And he says, "Holy Sir, I grew up happily in my father's abode. I was instructed by worthy teachers. Recently I went on a pilgrimage. During this period a trend of thought has taken hold of me, robbing me of all hope in this world. My heart begins to question, what do people call happiness, and can it be had in the ever-changing objects of the world? All beings in this world take birth but to die, and they die to be born. I do not perceive any meaning in all these transient phenomena, which are the roots of suffering and sin. Everything in this world is dependent upon the mind, upon one's mental attitude. On examination, the mind itself appears to be unreal, but we are bewitched by it. We seem to be running after a mirage in the desert to slake our thirst. Sir, surely we are not bond slaves sold to a master. Yet we live a life of slavery, without any freedom whatever. Ignorant of the truth, we have been aimlessly wandering in this dense forest called this world. What is the world? What comes into being, grows and dies? How does this suffering come to an end? My heart bleeds with sorrow, though I do not shed tears, in deference to the feelings of my friends." So Rama's heart bleeds with sorrow. And that's a state of depression. He basically begins to talk for 12 pages to describe his depression. It speaks about everything in life, how meaningless it is, how pointless it is. And probably nowadays he would have been given antidepressants to immediately calm down this perception. And instead, after the 12 pages, Vasishta tells him, obviously you know everything. I have nothing more to tell you. All you need is a confirmation. Now, how can this be? How can this be that such a terrible description of such disillusionment seems to Vasishta like a very encouraging sign, like a gate, not a crisis. That's where the secret that lies deep in depression is revealed. But only if we dare to look into it. If it's scary, and I can understand if it's scary, it's not easy. Because it's as if we feel that all of our mental and emotional constructs, all of the things that made us feel secure, grounded, all of the anchors, the psychological anchors, they are just fading away. And we feel helpless and hopeless. Then, of course, because it's too difficult and too painful, we are looking for something to relieve it, to make us feel better. Because what is this state? Robbing me of all hope in this world. We usually talk about hope as something so good, you know, hope for the better, or hope for the future, hope that things will turn well eventually. And here, Brahma has no hope. Can this be a good state? Can this be used? Can this lead to transformation? So of course, if depression leads to just depression, like a loss of energy from which it's just life's momentum takes us out one way or another, of course, then that is not very beneficial. It's just like moments of breakdown, that are pretty superficial, or that are just focused on one particular thing that hurt us or disappointed us. Like some people were not nice to us, and then we say, what's the point in life? But does that mean that if people were nice to us, then there would be a point to life? This is not where the point of life, the point to life can be found, because that's changing all the time. And that's exactly this sort of inner exhaustion that we feel in depression. It's like we suddenly see this whole thing, this whole up and down, up and down, up and down, happy and disappointed, and in a way not like something that builds up, but as a circle that just repeats itself. It's like states are changing all the time, modes are changing. So if you let these moments be, they are actually moments of deep realization. It's like a hole, something that breaks in the continuum of life. And you see the illusion. You see that something doesn't work. That everything that you try to build with your mind, with your emotions, is actually not really satisfying, not fulfilling. So the first thing that needs to happen is that the depression shouldn't be only about one specific event. This guy did this to me. There was a breakup. No, it should be a total depression. I know it sounds terrible. Total depression means that you use this moment to understand that you are waking up from the dream of the world. That all the promises all the made up meanings that we create. Are just thoughts. They can go away. So if you take just one more step with the depression, you realize that you're moving to a totally different zone of freedom. You begin to be free. Free from a dream. That you see things as they are. Because please understand what this whole world creates all the time fake meanings. They don't work eventually. Why? Because they tell us, I'm saying they, it's like the world tells us, move on, move on, move on, move on, do this, do that, follow this, follow that, and eventually you will reach happiness, peace of mind, satisfaction. Build brick by brick, and there you have it. But then we build brick by brick, and what we realize that at the end of the brick by brick there is death. Do you understand? It's absurd. It's not really building towards something. And the meaning of life cannot be found or experienced in this constant build-up of hope. Tomorrow will be better. I'm doing it better. I will improve myself. Then I will be happy. Then I will... We cannot be constantly led by such an illusion. And this is where hope can be a bit delusional. Sometimes hope is good, because we need to have this as human beings, but hope as the feeling that happiness and fulfillment will always be in the future, that's not good. Things will turn better eventually, and maybe they will turn worse. Who knows? So if you are entering moments of depression, and again, depression, I hope you understand. I know that it can sound like a big word, but it can be very also these very small moments of like, I'm sick and tired of this. I can't play this game anymore. This whole thing is not working. And we feel a shattering of hope. That's good. Seize it. Enter it. Just take a look from this moment or moments, just look at how everything breaks and collapses, and it's like a whole house of cards that the wind comes, blows, and that's it. And it was not very well built. It was not very convincing. when you think that it's horrible to think this whole thing, this whole world has no meaning, it is pointless, think again. Is it really so terrible to realize that? Or is it actually leading us to finally look for a much deeper meaning? Something that is not inside life, it is beneath life, it is all along there. And when I'm in depression, it's the first moment perhaps that I'm finally free to take a look. I'm finally free to drop my story and everybody's story. And check if there is a much deeper and more authentic meaning in life. Something that remains even after this whole thing breaks, collapses, all hopes shatter. So if your heart bleeds with sorrow, perhaps it's a good thing. Perhaps you're waking up from a dream. Perhaps it's a rebirth. There are more than a few people who got their awakening, the deep spiritual awakening through deep depression. It's not a coincidence. It's not a mistake. Some got it because they were absolutely happy. Okay? I was, at the age of 23, very, very happy. So then the happiness just grew and grew. But that's one story. Others reach a state in which they absolutely lose the whole point of the story of the self. it's like they reach the barriers, the box. And just like we did it in the meditation before, feeling how we usually feel so confined that they couldn't move anymore. It was either death or rebirth. It was a total crisis. I know at least 3 teachers that were in this state, and exactly in the very same moment in which they entered a portal, a gate, because the borderline is so thin at that in these moments. You can get stuck, of course. That would make it a meaningless depression. Or you can be in such a total state that you simply flip into the other side. You see, that's the thing. It's just like enlightenment and depression. They simply, they are like complementary halves. Both tell the same story. They say this whole thing of the world, all the stories we build, all the beliefs in purpose and meaning that human thought has created, all the illusions that promise us happiness at the end of the road, always at the end of the road, and also all the images of happiness, like romantic relationship, that always seems so awesome. But if you are really, really perceptive, if you're really honest, you know they're good and bad, and that's it. They're just what they are. They're not fulfillment. And that's the common thread that connects enlightenment and depression. Honesty. It's a moment where you're so honest that you finally see things as they are. You don't delude yourself. You don't live in some make-believe. Like, things are good. Or things should be good. And if you're really honest and deeply honest, this whole world of illusion can disappear. So it's one thing to be depressed, and completely different things to be as depressed as Rama. Let's see if there are any questions or sharing. I know there are.
I feel like, I get this with like just surrender to worries.
I can't hear.
I get the idea that why it's a good idea to surrender to worries. But like in my head I'm like, but I want this so bad, like I have these desires, and like a part of me still wants to get them, and I don't know how to combine those two things. Because like, yeah, I'm confused with that.
So the question is, on the one hand, I understand the surrender to what is. On the other hand, I feel that yeah, the drive, I want so much, all these things. So how can we settle these two experiences?
Like, what's the point of desire?
What's the point of desire?
Yeah.
That's a big question. What's the point of desire? Could someone help me? Well, we need to differentiate two things. One is desire, the other is passion. Passion is what, for example, I do here by talking to you, or why I write books, or why I do everything I do. And passion can move mountains. It's a very strong energy of life in us. Passion is what we feel that we're meant to do, regardless of consequences. It's something that we would do even if we didn't get paid for, even if we were not recognized for that. Even if nobody would have noticed, we would still do that. That's passion. And passion is good to have. It's good to feel driven, because we are meant to participate with our skills, with our capacities, with all that we have in this life. We are here. And it's natural. And then there is desire. And desire is not something that that we give or contribute out of our own beauty, out of our own curiosity, love, interest, but more all the things that we want to fill up ourselves with because we feel we're missing something. That's desire. Desire is craving, is thirst. Like, I must actually, yeah. Desire is when we get fixated on certain objects and we feel we must have them in order to feel full. And passion is something that comes out of fullness. It comes out of our sense of life, the beauty of life. Just like these flowers want to be beautiful, they don't want to be beautiful. They are the want to be beautiful, they are the drive. And so they become. So passion is doing something that you love. And that certainly is a sufficient energy to make you run around. But desire is not about running around, it's about sitting and letting things, all objects, trying to magnetize them into our deprived soul. Now, as long as we have these desires, we have two choices. Both of them are okay. One is to follow them through completely. That's completely valid. It's follow them. If you have desires, be honest. That's part of your honesty. You follow them all the way while saying to yourself, at least I'm going to keep an eye while doing that, checking if it's really fulfilling. Really, because that's a part of the honesty. You see? Saying, let's check it. I checked it. Didn't work. And 50% of the understanding of desire can only be achieved through experience, through disappointment, through disillusionment. You must feel it in your flesh, you see? You must feel the sadness and disappointment of pornography, the meaninglessness of winning prizes and getting world recognition, the absolute meaningless of having a lot of money, and so on and so on. You must feel it. Like only after you have it, you look at it and you say, oh. And then you begin to follow your mind in the way it builds a new story, a new hope. And then if you are wise, you stop there. You look at it and say, oh, come on, don't fool me now. You're just making it up now. And if we're not wise, we say, my mind surely has got a point. Let us check this, and then we check this, and then we are disillusioned, and then we check the other thing. And so on until we die. And the other 50% are just wisdom. They are insight. It's like seeing how our mind creates this promise. Why it creates this promise. Why it's afraid of silence, why it's afraid of the now. And why am I feeling myself so empty or deserted or lacking that I'm developing all these desires? One moment, I will complete the answer. Eventually, our honesty, it shows us that we are getting nowhere. But it's not really a march. But there is something deeper. And this deeper thing is what we really desire. So when we are something in the level of our soul begins to be honest enough, it says actually what I want is truth, reality, deep meaning, real life. And your soul recognizes that this is your desire. And at that moment, desires become much less significant. Desires are always somewhat alluring, you see. It's always like, it's like walking around and seeing all the time candies. And the candies, they are colorful and they look like something you really want to taste. So, but the more you're honest, the less colorful they are. Yes, please. So we should participate in life, but everything is illusion. So why participate? It's a good question. What is illusion? You see? Are trees illusion? Flowers? The universe? Galaxies? I'm not into this stuff. The ones that say that everything is illusion, like also the whole universe and all that. I don't feel that I would like to have reality only as some sort of emptiness. I think that there is a tremendous reality also in the universe. So then the question is, what is the illusion? The illusion is...
An illusion from illusion.
Sorry?
Illusion is an illusion from illusion.
Illusion?
Illusion from an illusion.
Wait, it sounds good, but I'm missing it. The illusion is all the invented meanings that the world is creating. Because when we live in the world, we get all this sense of what really counts, what are the real values, what is fulfilling in terms of human life, what should motivate us. And then we try to fit ourselves into these values, become what the world cherishes. We try to be important, to be loved, to be known, successful, strong, perfect, and all that. And the illusion is that our thinking promises us a sort of happiness at the end of the way, a fulfillment. The illusion is the story of ourselves as something that goes on and on and on, while reality tells us that it's not going to go on and on and on. So that's an illusion. But here we need to differentiate the world from life. Life is not an illusion. In life there is a meaning. It's not something that we can define, which it's not like saying the meaning of life is that. It's not about that. It's the very same energy that makes flower. Trees grow. It's a sort of a natural flow, a creative flow. Now, if I take this creative flow and I try and I use it in order to be recognized, famous, to be admired, or to be loved, and then, of course, that is an illusion. Because you become famous, let's say, and then you ask, okay, so why did I become famous? And the only answer is to become famous. And then the question is, so, but why did I become? And the answer again is to become famous, you see? It's like, it's something of a circular logic. It never leads to, there is no point, and we don't even remember what it is that we were looking for eventually. So when you connect to this life, after you let go of, you let all this, the illusion explode, then there is a deep question. So, is there anything that can drive me? Is there any energy that is still in me, that wants to do something? And sometimes the answer is yes. If the answer is no, you go to some ashram or to a monastery or to a cave, and that's fair enough. But sometimes you participate just just for the same reason that the sun rises. The sun radiates. It's just what it is. It's energy. It's the energy in you. This is what is left when, after depression, the greatest attack of depression takes place. If you let it wash away everything. You start communicating with life beneath the world. There is life. We just don't get it sometimes because everything is man-made, you see. Everything is made of thoughts. So we say, if all these thoughts go away, then nothing remains. Really? No, these thoughts are like a tiny, tiny ripple in the cosmos. They mean nothing. There's so much energy in the world, in the universe, so much passion and drive that do we really need? This Game of Thrones to make us want to take part? Let's see, there is a question here. I'm sorry? Another one?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Paloma is asking, I noticed that I always try a lot to please everybody. How can I care less about what others think about me? I noticed that I always try a lot to please everybody. Is there someone that the sentence is not found at least to a certain degree in their life here? Because I noticed that I always try a lot to please everybody. Everyone is trying a lot to please everybody because we see ourselves through the eyes of others. We see ourselves through the eyes of the world. We don't look at the world, we look at people looking at us. And when they don't look at us, we compare. We measure ourselves all the time. All our thoughts that we think that are self-rejection, self-hatred, are exactly made of the same comparison. Comparing myself, and that comparison is not even mine. It's just the thought that my meaning of existence is found in the way I am evaluated in comparison to others in society, in human society. So humans create this world in which there are powerful people and there are weak people and there are people who are admired and people who are disgraced, and we are told if you do this and that, you would be appreciated by the world. Makes sense, right? So all of us always try a lot to please everyone, and we try to please everyone with every gesture and with we try to fit. So how can I care less about what others think about me? It's very simple. It's realize that you have no choice but to be yourself. We always try to change ourselves. Who knows how much of our self-improvement is because of that? We try to adjust, to do the right thing, to not be sinners, to be good people. But basically we have no choice but to be ourselves. Do you have a choice? Do you have a choice? We have some imagination that we have a choice, that we are not like this. We always need to improve ourselves. It doesn't work. We admire flowers, and we never, never, never think that this flower should be like this one. We never think this. We never. How could you? Think how crazy. Why can't you be like this? This is much bigger, much more grounded and strong. Why aren't we shouting at this flower? Why do you laugh? So why don't you laugh when others do it to you? And when you do it to yourself because you believe that others do it to you? Sometimes people come and say and tell me I'm so sensitive and so weak. And I'm telling them, so you mean to tell me all these tiny spring flowers? Do you know the tiny spring flowers? The gorgeous ones? Do you know them? That are now there, outside? The purple ones, the yellow ones, all these beautiful ones that are so tiny that very few people notice them. What's the problem of being such a tiny flower? So then I tell them, okay, so you're weak and sensitive. And you feel that you don't have enough energy and you're very delicate. So what? Now if you say, okay, I don't have a choice, you become immediately beautiful as that, you see? It's not beautiful as long as you condemn it. Because this overshadows your being. It's like you always look like someone who doesn't like themselves. And that, of course, looks bad. But as soon as you use this mantra, this thought, I have no choice. That's it. That's the flower. Then you become beautiful, just as you are. Nothing changes. Only the entire existential neurosis goes away. All this discomfort of it's something like, I shouldn't be myself. I shouldn't be myself. I shouldn't be myself. While no one is going to be yourself instead of you, you see. So, and you're trying to be someone else. So how can I care less about what others think about me? Start for the first time to look at you. Do you look at yourself? Do you really see yourself through your own eyes, not through the eyes of God, society, your parents, whatever? Who will see you if you don't see you, you see? And say, I don't have a choice, that's it. What can I do? What can I do? I can't do anything about it. There is a sun, there is a moon, there are frogs, there are crocodiles, and there is me. That's the order of the world. And that's it. And then suddenly you realize that when you like yourself, it's like you become likable. It's very simple, because you finally radiate yourself, not a tortured being that believes that only if it changes itself, again the hope, it will become something that can be accepted. That's exactly part of the illusion. And what breaks could break also in depression. It's realizing, I can't do it. I can't fit. No matter how much I try. Of course you can, no matter, because you try. You don't try to be more than yourself. You try to be not yourself. And that's very different. That means crippling yourself. That would be, I think, the last question. Let's see if from Jasmine, if the self is awakening and losing attachment to this reality, losing attachment to money, sex, workout, family, friends, pretty much everything. Would a person surrender and wait? I'm currently reading a book. Okay, he described consciousness levels after enlightenment. The book is based on Islamic teachings. They believe that Muhammad is the last messenger. It seems like there are different degrees of enlightenment. Can you share with us your wisdom? Wait, that was probably, these were two questions. Well, first of all, I don't like to talk about degrees of enlightenment, because degrees of enlightenment are, again, comparison and grading. Like, this guy is number one, this guy is number two. It's many years ago, I've come to realize that I'm not going to play the game of who's more enlightened. And if somebody tells me you're not enlightened, I'm saying, actually, that's true. Because there is no such thing as an enlightened being. There is only enlightenment in which we participate. If you say that you're enlightened, you're delusional. And that is why talking about degrees could be intellectually entertaining, and it seems like it is important, because then we know how far we should aim. Well, we should only aim with our honesty and not by comparison. Always remember, if there are degrees of enlightenment, it's by shedding more and more layers of illusion. It's not by becoming more and more real. You can't, how can you become, oh, I've become so much realer than yesterday. Now I'm really real. Yesterday I was less real. It's not about that. It's just about removing more and more layers because reality is here. You don't add up, you remove. You remove. So that is why I don't know anything about these things. Maybe I do. But maybe I don't. What is important is that as soon as we enter that, we start comparing. And as soon as we start comparing, we do the most unenlightened thing. And that's the trap. So these things are delicate. Now, if the self is losing attachment to this reality, losing attachment to money, sex, workout, family, friends, pretty much everything, would the person surrender and wait? First of all, it's important to understand we don't lose attachment. It means that we stop doing workout, stop having sex, stop having money, stop contacting our family. That is silly non-attachment, you see. The big attachment that is the problem is in our head. So this is where we should lose attachment. And that's also the place where it's the hardest, because to throw away your money, it may be painful, but easier than freeing myself from my psychological attachments, the way I cling to things from the inside. I'm sorry?
What do you mean by psychological attachment?
Psychological attachment, it means that if I'm with someone in a relationship, it's not about whether I'm in the relationship or not, but whether I'm in fear of losing this relationship, whether if this relationship is suddenly lost, I'm going to lose myself, whether I'm not aware that there is death at the end of the way, even in the happiest relationships. So that's attachment. It means that I'm fixing a certain object in my mind and not letting it go. While losing attachment means to look into my beloved's eyes and to know that we are going to die. Things are going to end, perhaps even tomorrow. And we need to die every day inside if we ever want to understand the nature of life. So that's the big problem. Who is doing that? When everything is great, right? You will be forever? Yes, I will be forever. Oh, forever, 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 and never stop. It will never stop. Yes, that's the thing, because then these breaks, that's the problem. So, would the person surrender and wait? Surrender, wait for what? Wait for what? Wait for what? for an experience, then that's a conditional surrender. You see? If I say, okay, so I surrender, I surrendered, I really surrendered. It's not about that. If I surrender, there is no waiting. In surrender, there is already so much beauty and love and joy. There is so much reality in surrender. Because I give space for life, for reality. I don't wait for something great. What needs to be the end in the moment of surrender is the end of waiting. That's our illness, you see? Our psychological illness is waiting. So if you surrender, you stop waiting. For the first time in your life, you stop waiting. And when you stop waiting, that which you surrender to is everywhere. Thank you for the beautiful questions. So, now we all want to be depressed, right? Everyone will go home and say, "Oh, come on, what's going on? Why? I'm still feeling well." Thank you. Good night.